Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Aravinda Jyoti Aravinda Jyoti Aravinda. So a question that why do we not take a movie very seriously and why do we take life very seriously? It's a simple answer, come on.
Movies all made up.
Because we know a movie doesn't exist. It's a narrative in somebody's mind which became a script, which became a movie. But in life, we take the occurrences very seriously because we don't believe it's just a narrative in somebody's head. We believe that whatever is happening is real, right? But how do we know that life is not just a narrative in my head, why somebody's head? My life, how do I know that it's not just a narrative in my head? Can we be sure that it's not a narrative in my head? For instance, there are many movies, there are many short films we are making in our head all the time, right? We are making a film about this person is doing this to me, that person is doing wrong, this person is doing right. And at the time of the movie playing in our head, we are super convinced that it's real, it's not a narrative. But many times, at least in hindsight, we see it was all nonsense. Whatever we thought, it had nothing to do with facts. It was what my mind had convinced me was really happening, right? But it's not real. So in Jainism, there's a very beautiful teaching called Syad Vyad. Maybe this, may not be this. So for everything your mind says, instead of putting a full stop at the end of it, put a question mark. You'll at least be less rigid and you won't take your life and what's happening around you seriously enough to create misery for yourself and for others, right? See, we haven't really thought of emotional sensitivity as an illness of consciousness. But it is, right? To be so sensitive about everything, to overthink everything, to constantly project intentions into people's minds, etc. It's called emotional oversensitivity, right? And to a greater or lesser degree, all of us suffer from it. But we know that the moment we get triggered by emotional sensitivity, we are on the road to hell. What you do to others is irrelevant, but you get into a hellish mind state, right? So the Sufi would tell you, when you're on the road to hell, cut it short by reminding yourself that this narrative is not real. It's something in my head. It's a movie being made up in my head. I don't have to take it seriously enough. But if you're not watchful and that narrative becomes strengthened in you, you can't pull back. You have to be vigilant, and the moment it starts, you have to pull out of it. Otherwise, it gets too much of a strong hold in you to be able to pull out of it. So, emotional sensitivity is one of the illnesses we have, and it's linked to what mother says, that the more egoistic you are, the more prone to depression you will be, because what makes you emotionally sensitive is essentially your ego. The more bound you are in your ego, the more you'll take the narrative seriously. Because when do you take the narrative seriously? When the protagonist, when the actor in the narrative, you feel he exists, you won't take the actor in the movie and his narrative seriously, because you know that's not happening. But if the actor becomes real for you, the narrative becomes real for you. So if you feel very convinced that you're sitting here as a person, then whatever is happening to this person becomes very real to you. But it's very important to keep reminding yourself, there's no person sitting here. I am just a continuum of fluctuating mind states. Do you understand that? We've done it before in great detail in one of our classes. But what you're calling a person is a mind state, right? For example, how I'm feeling just now, I'm calling it Anahita, but it's a mind state. Next mind moment, it will be another mind state. Next mind moment, it will be another mind state. But because these mind states are fluctuating so fast, the speed is giving you the illusion of continuity. Like if you take an incense stick with a golden tip and you whirl it around very fast, it will look like a golden circle, right? But there's no golden circle, it's discrete golden points moving. So even your mind is like that. In the metaphor, the golden circle is you as the ego. But actually you don't exist, you're just a series of fluctuating mind states. So if you remind yourself of that, maybe you won't take that momentary mind state very seriously. But the moment you extrapolate the mind state into a person, you're stuck. You can't not take the person seriously.
Can I ask a question? If there is no person who is evolving,
God is evolving. You are God. Everything is the field of God. In manifestation, God is evolving. So now it brings us to the theme of our class. There's this beautiful mantra in the Upanishad, Yovai Bhuma, that which is vast. Bhuma is vast, like Bhumi comes from the word Bhuma. Okay, Bhumi is very vast, right? Tad Sukham, that which is vast is happy. Yeah? Nalpe, Alpa in Sanskrit means small. Na is not in the small. Nalpe Sukham Asti, not in the small is there joy. So when I'm in the smallness of identifying with myself as an ego, as a person, I am unhappy. But when I widen into recognizing that I'm just a consciousness which is a series of fluctuating mind states, then I widen. I don't take each discrete mind state seriously enough to make me unhappy. Okay, so let's do it. It's a very beautiful mantra. Shut your eyes. And all Upanishadic mantras have great power to transform the consciousness. So appeal to the wisdom in your heart, the Upanishad in the heart, and ask for help. Wherever, in whichever pocket of my life I am being small and emotionally reactive because I'm imprisoned by my ego, show me the truth that widens me into the vast, into Bhuma. So hear it once, then we'll chant it together. Bhumaiva Sukham. All of us. Yuve Bhuma. Everyone. Yuve Bhuma Tat Sukham. Tat Sukham. Nalpe Sukham Asti. Nalpe Sukham Asti. Bhumaiva Sukham. Bhumaiva Sukham. So just learn up the mantra. It's a beautiful mantra to chant whenever you feel you're feeling small. Yo Vai Bhuma, that which is vast. So just repeat Yo Vai Bhuma, Tat Sukham. Nalpe Sukham Asti. Bhumaiva Sukham. So let's all do it one last time together. Yuve Bhuma Tat Sukham. Nalpe Sukham Asti. Bhumaiva Sukham. Bhumaiva Sukham. And slowly open your eyes and let's come to our PDF. So the PDF describes various ways you can travel from Alpa, smallness, to Bhuma. So mother's words. My love is always with you. If then you do not feel it, it is because you are not capable of receiving it. And what stops us from receiving mother's love is our ego. Our idea of how we should be loved by ABC, by the universe, by the world. So if we widen out of that ego, we'll be more receptive to her love because she's pouring her love into us from everywhere. It is because you're not capable of receiving it. It is your receptivity that is lacking and should be increased. For this, you must open yourself, and one opens oneself only if one gives oneself. So when we are in the ego always wants to take. It's not so happy to give. But when you're in the mode of giving, you automatically become more receptive. Surely you are trying more or less consciously to draw the forces and the divine love towards you. The method is bad. Don't try to draw divine love towards you. Don't always have a relationship with the mother where you're asking her. It's okay to ask her, but that shouldn't be the only relationship. It should be a relationship where you also want to give yourself to her. So give yourself without calculating and without expecting anything in return, and then you will become capable of receiving. So we feel to receive we have to pull into ourselves, we have to grab. But mother says the more you give, the more wider your receptacle becomes to receive. So one way of broadening yourself into Bhuma is to really have this urge to give, and you can't do it mechanically. When will you have the urge to give? When you love. So when whatever you love, you automatically want to give it. Even human beings, if you really love a human being, You eat something very beautiful, you think, I want to take this home for that person. You want to give, right, when you love. And for the divine, it can be so much more. When you just love, you want to give, whether it's a flower, whether it's your work, whether it's anything, there's an urge to give. And this urge to give, Mother says, is the most powerful way to be receptive and to receive. True humility is humility before the divine. That is a precise, exact, living sense that one is nothing. One can do nothing, understand nothing without the divine. That even if one is exceptionally intelligent and capable, this is nothing in comparison with the divine consciousness. And this sense one must always keep, because then one always has the true attitude of receptivity, a humble receptivity that does not put personal pretensions in opposition to the divine. So the urge to give widens us and humility widens us. Conversation of a sadhak with the mother. This is from Udar Pinto's book. So it's a conversation of Udar Pinto with the mother. One day I asked the mother, I've been doing yoga for many years, but I'm not absolutely certain how to do the yoga of Sri Aurobindo. I read all the books, I read all the books and try to do the yoga, but I'm not certain how far I have progressed. I asked the mother to help me. You're doing it all wrong, she said. But what shall I do? I asked. She replied, I will do the yoga for you. I was thrilled. What do I have to do? I then asked. Give yourself over to me and I will do it for you, she said. I asked, how? She asked me, do you sincerely want to? I answered, yes, certainly, mother. Then mother asked, when you get up in the morning, what is the first thing you do? I said, I brushed my teeth. She asked, how do you brush your teeth? I wondered, how, like everyone else does? She said, then you're doing it unconsciously. Instead, think of me while you're doing it. For something as small as brushing your teeth, think that I'm doing it. Or when you're washing your face, think that I'm doing it with you. Or when you're eating, that I'm eating with you, that I'm enjoying your food with you. She added, when you go to sleep, that is the time when you should be very conscious of me. Let me put you to sleep, and the whole night you will have a conscious sleep. When you awake and begin your day, you will then begin it in a more conscious way. So this is what she is asking, is the ultimate act of self-giving, to give up your sense of I'm doing it. And it can begin with a thought. It may not be your experience that mother's actually brushing the teeth when I'm brushing. But if you understand, like Purvi asked, if I don't exist, then who will evolve? But the truth is, I don't exist. It's mother here who is evolving through this body. So it's not imagination to think that mother is brushing her own teeth, because in each of us, it's only the mother doing everything. It's her gift to us that she's given us a sense of individual existence. But that gift can become a curse sometimes, and when it becomes a curse, we want to give it back to her. I don't want this individual existence. Let me really know that it's you. So now there is a passage by the mother called Egocentric and God-centric Attitude. First stages of the sadhana are almost with everybody egocentric. The main idea in it is always one's own sadhana, one's own endeavor, one's own development, perfection, siddhi. It is inevitable for most, for without that personal endeavor, there would not be sufficient will or push to bring about the first necessary changes. But none of these things, development, perfection or siddhi, can really come in any degree of completeness or unmixed finality until this egocentric attitude changes into the God-centric, until it becomes the development, perfection, siddhi of the divine consciousness, its will and its instrumentation in this body. And that can only be done when these things become secondary. And bhakti for the divine, love for the divine, oneness with the divine consciousness, will, heart and body become the sole aim. The rest is then only the fulfillment of the divine will by the divine power. This attitude is never difficult for the psychic. It is its natural position and feeling. So in the beginning we do everything for ourselves, and this beginning lasts for many years for most of us, because even now perhaps we are doing a lot of things largely for ourselves, no? We are coming here to feel good, we do our asanas to develop our body, we work out of our ambition. Nothing wrong with that, that's the ordinary way of living. But when we live like that, we haven't yet consciously entered the divine life. When you enter the divine life, everything you do is for the divine, and you're not really thinking of what you personally gain out of the divine. You can keep that as a goal, you don't have to be artificial about it. If right now you're at a stage where the only way you can give your best is out of personal ambition, work like that, but keep it as a goal that eventually I want to outgrow this personal ambition. Eventually I want to experience the joy of doing everything I do only for the divine. So now these are Mother's words from a book by Mona Sarkar called Throb of Nature. There was a cyclone in Pondicherry and Mother is referring to that. This cyclone was simply a push from the earth nature to wake up some of her somnolent is sleeping, human children, to the necessity of making a progress based on Sri Aurobindo's saying, materially you are nothing, spiritually you are everything. What a marvel. He's saying materially you're nothing. If you think you're this matter, you're nothing. One storm, one cyclone can totally crush you. But spiritually you are everything. So there's these beautiful lines from Savitri. Consent to be nothing and none. Dissolve time's work. Cast off thy mind. Step back from form and name. Form and name is the conviction that you're a person here. So Sri Aurobindo is saying, cast off thy mind, step back from form and name. Annul thyself, nullify thyself, that only God may be. Consent to be nothing and none. Dissolve time's work. Cast off thy mind, step back from form and name. Annul thyself, that only God may be. So now we continue with Throb of Nature, where I love this piece where she's talking about her communication with plants who had survived the cyclone and who hadn't survived the cyclone. So she's saying, but then there was one tree who was not quite happy and who has left our surroundings during the cyclone. She says that tree has left our surroundings to rejoin his friends. So there was a eucalyptus tree, and Mother said that every day she would look out of the window, talk to it, tell it, you're so beautiful, I really appreciate having you here. But it would keep complaining that I've been uprooted from where I was and I want to go back to my friends. And apparently the night before the cyclone, it again came and complained to the mother that I want to go back where I was. And the mother told it that you are privileged that you're here, you're getting my blessings. And it didn't listen. And next day during the cyclone, it was completely destroyed. Why I like this is it's a metaphor for us. When we keep pushing our will against her will, then the law works like that for us also. So mother's talking about this particular tree. But then there was one who was not quite happy and who has left our surroundings to rejoin his friends. I consoled him so many times with an unheard of kindness and sympathy. In so many ways I explained to him, you have grown so big and majestic in such a short time. You bring me the freshness of early morning with the soft wind perfumed by your fragrance. You drive away the pitiless heat of the arid days, and at night you comfort me with the peaceful music of the whistling wind playing among your leaves. I am so proud of you and happy. You are among the jewels of my garden. Imagine mother telling you all this. You are endowed with exceptional grace to serve me. I used to talk to him so many times and in so many ways with the hope that he would not leave. And it was the same with sadhaks. We know that at the ashram there were many sadhaks who could not take the pressure and kept wanting to run away, and Mother and Sri Aurobindo would keep cajoling them to stay. But each time he would tell me, I'm all alone here and I feel desolate. I would like to see my companions and my friends who are always in a group. They enjoy themselves so much being together. They are as if in a family with companions who help one another. They are so happy. They play among themselves and are part of a community. They understand each other and agree so harmoniously among themselves. When I think of them, I lament and tell myself, why am I not with my friends who are happy and free? I would very much like to be with them instead of staying all alone here. I have no friends, no comrades, no one to talk to, and no one to play with me, no one to comfort me. How sad and miserable I am. Grumble, grumble, grumble. But I told him, I talk to you, I console you, and I admire you. And it's good for us to remember that somewhere mother's talking to us also when we are grumbling, but we are not listening. You have the exceptional good fortune to be near me and still more to serve me. There is no question of your being alone. Look, there are other trees who are your companions and who look so happy. Why don't you want to stay with us? We shall give you all you need and something more which your friends do not have. This is important. She's telling the tree and she's telling us that she can give us something more which the world cannot. Being close to a presence, participating in a sublime joy. This is a unique place and you are among those who are blessed to serve the divine. But the eucalyptus plant, or rather the tree, did not want any more of it. There was no way to convince him. He wanted to rejoin his friends. So at night he came to see me when the cyclone became violent and asked me for permission to leave his place to rejoin his friends. I spoke to him once again very sweetly and explained to him the importance of the position he occupied among the other trees, because I would wish him bonjour first with the early rays of the sun, which sparkled on his shiny leaves announcing the advent of the day. And even more because you have become one of us. Why do you want to leave? But he was adamant and had not found again the joy of serving. And that is why he wanted to leave. And look at his condition, almost dead, split in two, bleeding and disappointed. He is gone towards the coast to find his friends again. But if he had not wanted to go, if he had changed his mind, nothing would have happened to him. Look at this old service tree. Now she's talking about the service tree over the Samadhi. How he has stood with confidence against the severity of the cyclone, which could have easily uprooted such a big and old tree. How many other trees have perished, but only few rotten branches are broken. When I saw his attitude, I told him during the cyclone, hold firm, nothing can happen to you. And in fact, nothing happened. He renders me a great service, and I'm particularly attached to him because he shelters the good spirits and the souls who have gone and still wish to stay near me. He gives them shelter and nourishes them. It is a rare and benevolent tree. How many are lodged there? When I need to consult any one of them, I only have to call him, one of the spirits who he shelters. This tree is a formidable support. He is big, higher than the building, majestic and generous, standing at the center. He protects with his branches spread all around. He spreads in the atmosphere all around him the sweet perfume of his flowers. It is beautiful, the carpet of flowers below, and the flowers which bloom like a yellow half sphere above. It is wonderful. All the same, he has courageously endured the consequences of the cyclone, bearing visible scars of the damage. He is almost stripped of leaves but was saved miraculously. How many times in the night of the cyclone he came to tell me, "Mother, I cannot take it anymore. I'm being beaten and twisted so violently that I cannot endure it anymore. It is an extreme agony. My branches are broken and my limbs tremble in pain. I cannot bear it any longer. It's terrible, this pain. Let me go." But I consoled him, and each time I went to help him. Immediately the wind abated, and finally I told him, "How could you think of abandoning us? You are the guardian of so many souls, you who energize the atmosphere with your presence. You are like a splendid and benevolent king. Be brave, have courage. I am there to help you." Then he regained courage, and at the end he braved the cyclone, and he is doing well. Why I love this piece is that it's not just a communication with plants, because everything is finally extensions of the same spectrum. It's communication with human beings. The cyclone hit the eucalyptus tree and the service tree, right? It hits everyone. But what was the receptivity and the bhuma in each being? The eucalyptus only wanted to take. It wanted to take from life its comradeship and whatever. It couldn't survive. But the service tree had a nature which wanted to serve. And so it was more receptive to the mother, and so it was saved from the storm. But you should have seen these poor palm trees on the night of the cyclone. They are wonderful. I was watching them from my window when the flashes of lightning lighted up the whole sky from one end to the other with a striking rapidity and brightness. Of course, there was a power failure, but during these flashes of light, one could see everything during lightning, as these were almost continuous. And I saw the palm trees clearly, literally bent double by the speed of the wind, then straightening themselves and bending to the other side. This continued as long as the wind swept them, and I saw them bend and touch my window to tell me in what a miserable state they were, being tossed about from one side to the other like straws, and there was no way to resist. Then I urged them to hold on a little more till the cyclone decreased in intensity. But on the contrary, the wind resumed with greater vengeance, and the poor palm trees could no longer bear the blow. Finally, I told them that it was I who had planted them, and I was with all of them. And once again they regained the courage to stand firm and strong. All of us will identify with this. Sometimes during the cyclones of our life, we also have a dialogue with the mother. No, we also may say, "I can't take it anymore, this is too much." And somewhere from within us, something gives us strength, something dialogues with us, something tells us to hold on, isn't it? It's not just a dialogue with the palm tree. It's a dialogue with all creations. And if we have the receptivity to hear it, then we are resilient. We survive this cyclone.
What is it that makes one tree one being the other tree the other?
Their nature, their receptivity.
So where does that
That is from the beginning of time. If you want to know the cause of that, you have to go back to the beginning of time. So, and once again they regained the courage to stand firm and strong. Truly they defied the inscrutable law. Certainly they should have perished, but they came through as valiant heroes. It is truly admirable how they could almost bend in two and not break. I was watching all this from my window. Finally, when the cyclone had the audacity to disturb me and made me wet, I told it enough, and the cyclone stopped for half an hour. Stopped completely. You know the story. I recounted it to you last time, didn't I? Now we still have the service tree as the guardian who watches constantly and gives shelter to the souls and spirits who want to serve me. He is like a canopy spread over the samadhi. He is a great benefactor and a protector. See, the service tree has no ambition but to serve. But without ambition, he's become the king of trees in the ashram, isn't it? Because he wanted to serve. So, he protects and sanctifies this place and does not permit any bad entity or unhealthy forces to lodge there or to penetrate him or the space around. He chases them away from here so that this place is pure and without agitation, or rather calm and peaceful. He is old, and yet like a faithful servant, he does his work without complaining. What I have assigned to him, he does with devotion and unequal self-giving. That's all he does, and Mother made him the monarch, isn't it? Then Mother gives 4 symbols of the storm. The Mother writes, the state in which the storm does not come in contact with a person is superior to a state where a person can bear it. Very beautiful. She's saying that if you have a state of consciousness where the storm cannot come into your presence, that state is superior as compared to being able to bear the storm. We saw that it's a common story in Sri Aurobindo's room. When the cyclone came, it was a very strong cyclone and everything was going helter-skelter outside, and Mother went to Sri Aurobindo's room to shut the windows. But he was sitting quietly writing. Outside everything was clattering, but not even a paper was being fluttered by the wind in his room. There was such a solid peace in his room that the fury of the cyclone just couldn't come in. So that's what she's saying, to have a state where a cyclone cannot come into your presence is superior to a state where you have the resilience to bear it. That itself is a very high state, but there is still something higher. The first stage is when one is in the storm and one is subdued by the storm and is at its mercy, a victim like an ordinary person. This is the first one, where you're not conscious enough to do anything and the storm overwhelms you. The second one is in the storm but has control over oneself but not on the storm. One is calm and detached, but one is in the storm. So the first one is the storm has come, I'm giving in to panic, and the storm is doing whatever it has to with me. The second stage is the storm has come, I am in consciousness resilient, but my body is being lashed by the storm in any old way. The third stage is when one is in the storm, but the storm does not touch one. It passes and one remains outside, as if one has control over oneself and over the storm. One sees the storm, but it has no effect on us. So this is not just a physical storm. Let's even take an emotional storm. In the first case, you're just overwhelmed. You can't do anything. Second case, you're resilient, but it's leaving its scars on you. It's scarring you. third is the storm is there, but somehow you are not being affected by it. It's not even scarring you. It's there, but you're not suffering from scars. One is absolutely the master of the situation. But there is yet another stage which is much more superior. That is for later on, when one would have advanced greatly on the path. It is not necessary that I tell you now. It's the last stage. It will be for later on. But I think Mona Sarkar keeps pushing her. So she says, yes, come, I will tell you. The fourth stage is when one is united with the Supreme. And the Supreme commands you to enter the storm to do His work. You enter the storm on the order of the Supreme to save the people who are in danger of the storm. And you bring out those people out of the storm without their being hurt. And it has no effect on you. This is the divine state. This will be for much later, this stage. This is the fourth one. Do you understand? These are the four symbols of the storm. Clear? As we advance in yoga, we see that each time we fall ill, this is from Adventure of Consciousness by Satprem. As we advance in yoga, we see that each time we fall ill or even meet with an external accident, it is in fact always the result of a lack of consciousness, a wrong attitude or a psychological disorder. So again we come back to Sri Aurobindo's line in Savitri, our outward happenings have their seed within. Nothing outside happens without having a correlation to something in our consciousness. Every illness, every accident, everything, somewhere you can trace it inside. And instead of trying to fix it outside, if you sit with yourself and ask yourself, why did it happen? What was the lacuna in my consciousness? What was the pocket of unconsciousness in me, which life reflected to me by sending this difficulty? Then I start growing. Then I start responding to life the correct way. This study is all the more interesting because the moment we set foot on the path of yoga, something in us becomes alerted and makes us every moment see and even put our finger on our errors, on the real cause of all that happens to us, as if someone, in quotes, were taking our search in earnest. Nothing is left in the dark, and the more and more we discover at times with amazement a strict correlation between our inner state and outer circumstances, as if life were no longer unfolding from outside inward, but from inside outward, the inside fashioning the outside. So beautiful, the inside is fashioning the outside, down to the most commonplace circumstances, fashioning the outside not only for big things, but every little thing outside is being fashioned by a blueprint inside us. Actually, nothing is commonplace anymore, and everyday life appears as a network heavy with signs waiting to be recognized. So the more conscious you become, your life becomes laden with signs waiting to be recognized. Anything wrong happens outside, it immediately. So I had a very I had just read this in the morning, and that particular day I was thinking a particular context, and I was wondering whether my thought was right or wrong. I couldn't decide. And then I was in school, and the staff toilet was, I didn't go up, I went to the children's toilet, and a child had messed up the tap, and I touched that. And the moment I touched that, I see that's a sign telling me that in thinking like this, I'm putting my hand into dirt. So immediately I stopped. So every little thing like that becomes a sign for you if you're looking for it. everything is connected. The world is a miracle. It may be a childish error to imagine that spiritual life consists in seeing visions or apparitions and contemplating supernatural phenomena. The divine is nearer to us than we think. The miracle less showy and more profound, Isha, than all this stereotyped imagery. Once we have deciphered just once of these little signs that cross our path, discern just once the imperceptible link that connects things together, we are closer to the great miracle than if we had touched heavenly manna. For the miracle may be that the divine too is natural, the ordinary miracle that the divine is, but we are heedless. Thus the seeker becomes aware of this reversal of the current of life from inside outward. Naturally enough, since the psychic master has come out of its imprisonment, he breaks the seal on these everyday signs and sees that his inner attitude has the power to model outer circumstances either way, for good or bad. When we are in a state of harmony and our actions conform to the deeper truth of our being, nothing seems to be able to resist. Even impossibilities dissolve, as though another law was superimposed on the natural one. So if pockets of unconsciousness inside us attract accidents and little things, pockets of consciousness inside us would constantly attract a field of protection, right? So we are this magical organism which is constantly unfolding from inside out. I mean, what's sitting here itself is magic. You don't have to look beyond your skin for the miracle. And we begin to taste a royal freedom. But when there is some inner disorder, mental or vital, we find that this disorder irresistibly calls up untoward outer circumstances, right? When we have a disorder inside, it invites untowards outward circumstances, the intrusion of an illness or an accident. The reason for this is simple. When our inner state is bad, we emit a certain type of vibration that automatically calls up and contacts all other vibrations of the same type and frequency at every level of our being, causing a general muddle. External circumstances are disrupted and everything goes awry. It's like similar frequencies resonate with similar frequencies. When I'm at one frequency, I invite all the vibes of that frequencies to come to me. When I lift my frequency, I invite the vibes of other saints and beings who vibrate at that frequency. Not only does this bad inner state create a muddle, it also weakens the circumconscient protective envelope we mentioned earlier. See, a circumconscient is like the energy bubble that surrounds us, right? And that energy bubble, what is it woven of? It's woven of our thoughts and our emotions. If we live with a lot of grumbling, a lot of negative thoughts, that circumconscient envelope is weak. Then we are more prone to attacks. But if we live in a happy, positive state, that consciousness actually makes a shield. It's not a poetic thing. When we say our consciousness is our protection, if we are in the right consciousness, it actually makes an energy shield around us. What better example than the cyclone in Sri Aurobindo's room? Which means that instead of being guarded by a certain vibratory intensity, we are open, vulnerable. There is nothing like a vibration of disorder to make holes in our protective envelope. That's why Mother says, never grumble. When you grumble, you attract all sorts of negative energies into you. So, vibration of disorder to make holes in our protective envelope, or rather to disintegrate it, and anything can enter. We should also be careful to note that a bad inner state is contagious. A certain kind of company always attracts accidents or trouble. So if you are keeping the company of certain people who have that toxicity, somewhere you pick up their energy, and because you picked up that energy, you attract things also. But it's never good to blame people for things that come to you, because if you didn't have a similar frequency in you, you wouldn't pick up their energy. Because you have it in you, you're vibrating with their energy and you're picking it up. So never a good idea to blame anyone. Finally, you are the author of your pain. Sri Aurobindo writes that, right? Man, you yourself are the author of your pain and the author of your joy, both. After we have had the same experience 10 times, 100 times, from a common cold to a mere fall to a serious accident, depending on our inner state, we will have learned once and for all that neither our bodies nor so-called chance has anything to do with all this, and likewise that the remedy lies in no external drug, but in restoring the true attitude, the inner order, in a word, in consciousness. If the seeker is conscious, he can walk through any epidemic, drink all the dirt of the Ganges as he pleases. Nothing can touch him. For what could touch the awakened master? We have isolated bacteria. We've seen this in the COVID times. I often notice that the people who are most depressed and paranoid about getting COVID got it once, twice, thrice. And the people who were kind of happy and at peace, I saw they didn't get COVID, or they got that Omicron version which was very mild. So finally, you have to vibrate at the level of the germ. Then only the germ can enter you. Or it's entered you, but then only can it cause an illness. We have isolated bacteria and viruses, but we have not understood that they are only agents, and that the disease is not the virus but the force that uses the virus. Mother says there are forces behind all pathogens. If we are clear, there is nothing all the viruses in the world couldn't do, because our inner force is stronger than that force. Or to put it differently, because our being vibrates with an intensity too high for that lower vibration. Only like can enter like. You will see that you will get coughs and colds also very often when your inner state is unhappy, overwhelmed, full of grumbling. Then you will pick up coughs and colds very often, or any kind of illness. If we are clear, there is nothing all the viruses in the world can do, because our inner force is stronger than that force. Or to put it differently, because our being vibrates with an intensity too high for that lower vibration. Only like can enter like. That is why even if we succeed in eradicating cancer, for instance, the way other medieval diseases have been eradicated, we will not have eradicated the forces of illness, which will use something else, another agent, another virus, once their present instrument has been detected. Our medical science touches only the surface of things, not the source. There is only one disease, lack of consciousness. Wherever you have a lack of consciousness, you'll have an illness. At the later stage, when the inner silence is sufficiently established and we have become capable of perceiving mental and vital vibrations at the edge of our circumconscient, so that's of course an advanced. Circumconscient is this energy bubble. anything first enters that and then comes to us. So any illness, the energy of it enters our circumconscious. If we can push it out from there, it won't come into us. That's what Mother is saying. We will similarly be able to feel the vibration of illness and drive them out before they enter. If you can become conscious of this environmental self of yours, Sri Aurobindo wrote to a disciple, then you can catch the thought, passion, suggestion or force of illness and prevent it from entering you. So we end with this very beautiful passage from Savitri. So this is the divine addressing humanity. Take it like that for our purpose today. O force compelled, fate driven, earth-born race. So the divine is telling us you're a force compelled by the force of nature, fate driven, earth-born race. O petty adventurers in an infinite world. The world is infinite, but the mind has made you alpa, small and petty. So you all are like petty adventurers in a world where you can be so vast because the world is infinite. O petty adventurers in an infinite world, and prisoners of a dwarf humanity. The human mind is like a dwarf. How long will you tread the circling tracks of mind? See, if you look at how your mind works, it's not very different tomorrow than it was yesterday. Today that same hypersensitivity to things, tomorrow that hypersensitivity towards somebody else. The context may change, but the narrative more or less is the same. It's the same cycle of movie making that goes on in the head. So God is asking us, how long will you tread the circling tracks of mind around your little self and petty things? But not for a changeless littleness were you meant, not for this alpa of the ego which never changes. You were not meant for that. Not for a vain repetition. We keep repeating the same patterns in vain without growing out of them, right? So the voice is telling us, not for a vain repetition were you built. Out of the immortal substance you were made. You were made out of the very substance of Bhuma, vastness. You are not made in a mold which is alpa, small. Out of the immortal substance you were made. Your actions can be swift, revealing steps as you live through life. It can reveal so much about you to yourself if you open your eyes and see. So your actions can be swift, revealing steps. Your life, a changeful mold for growing gods. Purvi answering your question, who grows? God grows. And it grows in a changeful mold. The mold you're in will keep growing all the time, but that God is growing through different molds. Your actions can be swift, revealing steps. Your life, a changeful mold for growing gods. A seer, a strong creator is within. Behind all your smallness, there's a seer, one who can see everything. A strong creator is within. The immaculate grandeur broods upon your days. Almighty powers are shut in nature's cells. A greater destiny waits you in your front. This transient earthly being, if he wills, can fit his axe to a transcendent scheme. So this transient is changing earthly being, if he wills, can fit his axe to a transcendent scheme. So right now I'm following the normal patterns and grooves of nature. But if I will it strongly enough, I can fit my axe to follow a higher will, a transcendent scheme. He who now stares at the world with ignorant eyes, each of us are now staring at the world with ignorant eyes, hardly from the inconscient. Inconscient is something that totally lacks consciousness. Hardly from the inconscious night aroused, that look at images and not at truth, can fill those orbs with an immortal sight. Yet shall the Godhead grow within your hearts. You shall awake into the Spirit's air and feel the breaking walls of mortal mind. So Sri Aurobindo often says, I'm not a philosopher, I'm a seer. I write what I see. So he has seen all this as the future of humanity. And in a way, Savitri is his promise to us of what our future is. So, yet shall the Godhead grow within your hearts. You shall awake into the Spirit's air and feel the breaking walls of mortal mind and hear the message which left life's heart dumb, and look through nature with sun-gazing lids and blow your conch shells at the eternal's gate. Authors of earth's high change, to you it is given to cross the dangerous spaces of the soul. Dangerous, why? Because you, just the way when you enter a temple, you see Rakshasas on the gate. To enter the inner sanctum sanctorum, you have to pass through all the Rakshasas of your vital being. All that's trying to pull you away from going inside. So you have to cross the dangerous spaces of the soul and touch the mighty mother stark awake and meet the omnipotent in this house of flesh. Omnipotent is the all-powerful. In this house of flesh, you are the house of flesh. So you have to meet the omnipotent in this house of flesh, omnipotent, all-powerful, and make of life the million-bodied one. So beautiful. This life is already a million-bodied one, one in a million bodies, but we are not conscious of it. So we have to reach a consciousness where we make of life the million-bodied one. So this is our last passage. I'm just going to read this whole passage of Savitri without explanation. Just listen to it. O force compelled, fate driven, earth-born race, O petty adventurers in an infinite world, and prisoners of a dwarf humanity, how long will you tread the circling tracks of mind around your little self and petty things? But not for a changeless littleness were you meant, not for a vain repetition were you built. Out of the immortal substance you were made. Your actions can be swift, revealing steps. Your life, a changeful mold for growing gods. A seer, a strong creator is within. The immaculate grandeur broods upon your days. Almighty powers are shut in nature's cells. A greater destiny waits you in your front. This transient earthly being, if he wills, can fit his axe to a transcendent scheme. He who now stares at the world with ignorant eyes, hardly from the inconscious night aroused, that look at images and not at truth, can fill those orbs with an immortal sight. Yet shall the Godhead grow within your hearts. You shall awake into the Spirit's air and feel the breaking walls of mortal mind and hear the message which left life's heart dumb, and look through nature with sun-gazing lids and blow your conch shells at the eternal's gate. Authors of earth's high change, to you it is given to cross the dangerous spaces of the soul and touch the mighty Mother stark awake, and meet the Omnipotent in this house of flesh, and make of life the million-bodied one.